Yo, 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 yo. What's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads? This is Weedman 420 with the Weedman 420 Chronicles. How are all you vipers doing out there? Mrs Weedman.
Mr. Weedman.
How the hell are you?
Doing great.
I love it. I love it. Been a rainy day today, but once again, we need it. Crazy here. Crazy rain. Crazy rain.
Storms, not rain. Storms.
Yeah, it's true. It looked like the nothing coming into town today. If you remember that movie, The Never-Ending Story with Atreyu. Hey, everybody. Hopefully you're smoking some big fat doinks while you're listening to the show. Mrs. Weedman and I are about to get normal. We're going to smoke some GG4 grown by our friend Big Earl.
It's so good.
Oh, my gosh. Wonderful. So Mrs. Weedman's going to spark that 8 decades bowl up while I read you a little bit about GG4. Once known as Gorilla Glue 4, is an indica-dominant hybrid strain, about 60-40, created through crossing infamous Chemsister, Sour Dub, Chocolate Diesel strains. Known for its body-melting effects, GG4 is perfect for kicking back on those nights when rest just won't come easily. The high has a slowly building onset, first hitting you in the mind with a lifted sense of euphoria as your negative or racing thoughts quickly fade away. Your body will drop off in a state of deep physical relaxation. I do have to say that about this thing. It is totally just body relaxation. The state of calm quickly turns sedative, immediately gluing you to anywhere you happen to be sitting for hours on end without relief. With these hard-hitting effects and its super THC levels, Gorilla Glue is said to be perfect for treating conditions such as chronic pain, depression, insomnia, and muscle spasms or tremors. This bud has a chemical diesel flavor with a rich chocolatey exhale that tastes slightly of earth. The aroma is very heavy, pungent, and dank diesel overtone, extended by mocha and spices. GG4 buds have they're fluffy, olive green, popcorn-shaped nugs with long, thin amber hairs and coating of thick, frosty, bright, white crystal trichomes. Effects: body high, euphoria, relaxing, sleepy. Chronic pain, relief symptoms: chronic pain, depression, insomnia, muscle spasms. Flavors: chemical, chocolate, diesel, and pine. And then aromas are chemical, diesel, earthy, sour, and woody. This strain here is wonderful. Everybody who I've given this a try or smoked a joint with or a bowl with or given some people some, all they want is more. More. I'm like, I can't get any more. But Big Girl, fantabulous. I mean, as soon as I open the jar up, I just enjoy just shoving my face in the jar and smelling it. So, Ms. Weedman, talk while I hit this bowl.
Yeah, it's pleasant. We actually smoked a lot of weed this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Between just being a weekend and then falling into the 4th of July weekend, it was kind of a nonstop smoke-a-thon. But we had a couple of friends that tried the GG4, and they're like, get me some of this. I want some. So someday we're going to have to get our hands on it again.
Yeah, this Big Earl,
it was
phenomenal stuff. I still got a lot left.
Yeah.
I'm going to enjoy this tremendously for the next, until it's gone. It's amazing. And I have, like I said, more and more people asking me for it. So I'm like, you can come smoke a joint with me.
I'm not giving it away.
I'm not giving any more away. I've given enough.
I have to tell you, like on the discussion of Big Earl, I'm growing some auto seeds outside. We talked about them, I think, on the last episode. And we just had a really, really like drought-ridden spring and early summer, and then just got nailed in the last 2-3 days with like 6, 7, 8 inches of rain.
Hell rain.
And so the garden was spot on. And my plants outside, I let them just take their course with nature. Mr. Weedman was mixing nutrients for me to water them throughout the week sporadically, and then like pH-balanced water. So they've been getting that, but then when it rains, they're getting the natural rain.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the
love
process.
Love it.
And last week when I posted my Show Your Grow, we had just put Damascus
Damascus earth.
on them because there were some pests in the garden. It worked effectively, but wait till you see my pictures this Friday because they're like little. I trimmed them a little bit, got those big fan leaves off, and that rain. They just pop. They're like little monsters. They got some fat
They're
nuggies
like little
going.
bonsai
They're cool.
weed plants.
Yeah,
They're
they didn't
great.
get tall because they're autos, so they went into flower really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's super simple because I watch Mr. Weedman and all of the different steps along the way for an indoor grow. These and not an auto seed. These auto seeds outside, it's like really there's not a lot of work to be done.
No.
You just make sure they have water, and they're
light.
really great. It's fun. So I'll post some pictures again on
This
Friday.
Friday, show your grow. We're watching The Bear
Yeah, we are.
on Hulu. Season 2, really good this episode, and it really shows the process of trying to open up a restaurant from the ground up with a building that needed to be all redone.
Yeah, in a city that's very political when it comes to trying to get things done. Processes in any big city are slower than they could ever possibly need to be. Yeah, so they show the nitty gritty of trying to open a mom and pop.
But
Like good establishment.
But want a star.
They
want
want-
a
yeah, they
star.
want a Michelin
so
star.
they're trying to do the best. What I really enjoy about it is they've sent their people that work for
It's
them
really cool.
across the globe to get training.
And different people. They didn't send them to culinary schools. They sent them to like the best of the best chefs that would welcome them for a very brief amount of time to work in their kitchen and learn like culinary school 101 in like 1 week,
Yeah.
right?
They
Like-
did send the one woman and the other guy to.
They went to full on.
They went to full out,
school.
like it was like a 90-day program, or so. But everybody else went to specific chefs.
Yeah,
and it was
that's pretty cool.
amazing to watch them learning and then doing the dishes.
There was a lot of backlash though when this season came out because it is all of the like the first season was just about the business as it existed
Right.
and how dysfunctional it was, and the brother who is a chef came back to his other brother's beef shop that was just run by guys who ran their beef shop, and they just did it like someone taught them to do it a long time ago. And so here comes this uber trained brother, the Bear, who's been like working at Alinea and the top of the top restaurants like micro gastronomy, molecular gastronomy, or whatever, the fanciest of fancy dining. And he's highly, highly skilled. He comes into his brother's restaurant to try to help out, and it's a hot mess. So now they're trying to revamp it, right? And so he wants to bring, like, he's recognizing these kind of weaknesses or strengths within each of these people that are sticking around to be part of it. And he's fostering it. It's really cool. So he's sending them to places that would really be fitting to them and their skill set in the culinary trades to dial in their skill. And it's just neat to see each of them evolve because they're just in the right environment.
And they're
It's
being
really
mentored
cool.
and coached.
And they're being coached.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's pretty, and they're going to have a part of something from the ground up.
Yeah.
And they all saw the process of what it took to get there.
It's very cool.
Yeah, very cool. Great show if you haven't watched it yet. The other thing I do like about it.
I was so high already that I forgot what I was trying to say about that. There was a lot of backlash. That's where I started. And it was because this whole season is being behind the scenes. And I think it was another Chicago, because this is all based on Chicago culinary, experiences. And so Rick Bayless is a huge Chicago, like the best of the best chefs. He's amazing. And he's a cool guy and does really neat things with his staff and educating people. And he's on television. He's a star.
Yeah.
He's really cool. He had been quoted as saying, this really sets the restaurant industry back 20 years. Because what mom, after watching season 2 of The Bear, when her 15-year-old son says, I don't want to go to college, I want to go to culinary school, and I want to own a restaurant. Now, this is mom's idea of what happens in the restaurant world. And what is she going to say to her son? Hell no. You're going to college. So he was kind of pronounced about his interpretation of how this show is going to take the restaurant business backward. And now they have to dig themselves out of that hole again. But I don't think so. But we also have the experience.
23
you
years
spent so many
running
years in it.
restaurants,
So
bars.
I've heard all of this stuff.
So I mean, it is that way, but you don't do it because you do it because you love it. You do it because you're passionate about it. It might not. It's not always fun. Sometimes going out for drinks with the people you work with is fun to let loose a little bit, but it's not always fun. You know, it's passion and love, and you enjoy doing it is why you do the restaurant industry, and you know, why you work in restaurants and fine dining. I've done it all. I mean, I've worked from stands from the bottom to the top.
Well, you haven't been the chef, but everything. Yeah,
but
I
mean, I learned how to do stuff. I had to learn how to expo. I had to learn. I mean, but I ran floors, you know, and I ran restaurants. So I mean, it does take a passion and a love for it. It's not fun.
It's hard
yeah,
work.
you have some laughs and, you know, along the way, but I mean, you're working 10, 12-hour days some days, 100-hour weeks. You got to love it.
Well, think about being one person entertaining, you know, 5 of your friends for dinner. So you're cooking for 6 people, and you're cleaning your house and setting the table and doing everything from, you know, plate to everything it contains, and the next round and the next round, you know, if there's appetizers, dinner, and dessert. Think about that, and now you're like a restaurant filled with people, and it's that turn and burn and being effective, right? And making money for the house.
Every second counts.
But making oh my God, they did this kind of.
It's the truth in the restaurant industry.
There was this play on Alinea in Chicago, which is the gastro scientific crazy dinner experience, and it's like $2,000 a person. You have like 10. I think it's 10, maybe it's 13, 14 courses. I don't know. It's a shit ton of food, but all like micro-sized foods. And it's crazy. Everything is like a science experiment, and it's supposed to be just, it's beyond the food. It's this whole experience. So one of the people on the show gets sent there to be trained. But they don't call it that restaurant, but you know who it is. And it was just so cool. And their philosophy in that restaurant is every second counts.
Every second counts.
And that kitchen is run like beyond military.
Yeah.
It's like dialed in.
It's pretty dope.
It was so cool.
Yeah. It's a good show. If you haven't watched it.
I really want to go to that
the
restaurant.
The other thing I like about that show is the cinematography of Chicago.
Yeah. Oh, the skyline, like when they sweep up.
They
Because you
hit
see it's so fun to see.
They hit certain parts of the city, and you're just like, wow, that's what it looks like from up there.
Yeah. Like, oh,
you
I've
know?
been there, or, whoa, I know that.
Yeah.
Oh, I know
and
that
you
place.
know
I
it.
that
I mean,
place.
being here for as long as you have, you living here your whole life, me being here for a long time, you just now appreciate that even more.
Cool.
Yeah, they did. It's a phenomenal show. So 4th of July weekend.
4th of July weekend was a bang.
Fucking a banger. My Mr. Weedman's favorite day of the year. And it's not even 4th of July. It's my favorite day of the year. The party I throw every year, the day before the 4th of July, is my favorite day.
Or sometime around the 4th of July. It's like our 4th of July barbecue that doesn't happen on the 4th.
It's my one favorite day of the year. And it was funny because O-Dog said to me, this is the one day that you get a break for being
You don't have to be anything but Paul. You just be you.
Yeah.
Do you.
So,
you always get wacky.
I always get, it's the one day a year I feel like shit for
sloppy.
like.
Get sloppy.
I feel like shit for like 3 or 4 days after. Because it's the one day I drink the most, smoke the most, and just rip it up. And it's right? It's the one day.
Yes, you can count on it.
And it's so
year.
funny because O-Dog goes, it's the one day you get a pass. I said, I know. That's why it's my favorite day.
Okay. Hey, you can do that any day you want. I just may not be around every day if you're doing that every day. It's the one day a year I know I can do it. It's the shopping today.
It's the one day I know I can do it.
Yeah.
And I have fun.
Day, yeah.
I mean, we put a good spread out. We put it not only just food, but a beer, liquor, wine bar, and then a full-blown cannabis bar. And then your dessert this year was off the chain. They weren't infused.
No, this was like, I knew there was going to be a lot of cannabis consumption. And I knew we had a pretty full adult meal that was, pretty solid. We did brats and cheesy, yummy potatoes and baked beans and what else? Oh, a really good pasta salad.
Yep.
And we had that was good.
Yep.
So now we needed like some now everyone was hitting the weed after dinner. The joints were going around.
Boozing it up.
Yeah, everyone's had some drinks. I'm like, we need some silly desserts. I made sushi Rice Krispie treats. So they're pretty cool.
So fucking
So it was
awesome.
fun because nobody knew. And when I made them, I'm like, this is kind of silly. This is all adults at this party. Am I really going to make Rice Krispie treats for all these adults?
Yes.
But yeah, it was fun. Someone took pictures.
Yeah.
We'll have to find those.
I think Shawty's got some, but the cool thing about it is, so the Rice Krispie, Mrs. Weedman rolls them like a sushi roll, and then puts like different types of candy in between.
You use fruit roll-ups
Yeah.
as your seaweed.
As your seaweed,
Rice
your kelp.
Krispie treats as your rice, and then candy, long strips of candy of sorts like licorice, gummy worms,
Or Swedish fish.
You can roll like airheads out, and you put those down the center, and then you roll it all up like a piece of sushi and slice it. It's amazing.
I mean, we
People
definitely
love
can
it.
infuse the Rice Krispie treats if we
Oh, we
wanted
could do
to.
it, yeah.
And then add other edibles on top if we wanted to. But this was because we already had edibles made for this party. And then we also had.
Yeah, how many times do you think people said, "Are these infused?"
Oh, I walked outside.
No, it's just food.
I came inside. I came outside after I was helping
Promise.
you out in the kitchen for a second, and the first thing someone said to me is like, "There's like 4 or 5 people that won't eat these because they think they're infused." And I walked up to the table, and I looked at. There was like 20 people standing
Yeah.
around the table, and everyone was enjoying the desserts. And I said, "Listen, we are not the type of people to not tell people that
No,
there's
yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
these are infused or not infused."
We would never sneak that.
We would never do that to people. So I'm letting you all know these are not infused. If you want infused edibles, I have some in the house tucked away, and I will bring you some. But these are not infused. Enjoy. And if they were, we would have put a Mrs. Weedman would have put a
sign
fucking
or-
sign that
yeah.
said infused, not infused. You know. So, but those sushi candy, those sushis that you make, they can be
They were fun.
infused. And there would be a lot of fun at an infusion party.
Mm-hmm.
People would be off the fucking rails. I mean, they're fucking amazing. So, kind of fun. So great 4th of July. I just, it's my favorite day of the year. So, Mrs. Weedman,
Yeah,
you ready to get the show started?
let's do it.
Let's do it. Can you trust cannabis experts?
In terms of what?
Well, we've said on the show from the beginning, even from like day one, we are not experts.
No, we are not.
We are learning to help others learn. We want to learn more and more. I don't ever want to be an expert at anything because then I stop learning.
We're sharing public information.
Yes.
We're just saving you time.
Yeah, a lot of time.
That's all. We're telling you what we're reading in the newspaper and online.
Yes. So
Well, not the newspaper because I don't have a
and
newspaper.
school, what I've learned at school, and
Magazines.
books that I'm reading. I mean, I just do this because I love it. So, but we are not experts. We just
No.
want to help us learn so others can learn with us. And then we talk about cannabis a lot. So, but can you trust experts? A lot depends on who these experts are. A cannabis farmer with decades of experience, a bud tender with extensive knowledge, training, and school on cannabis goods. Some of them may be experts. What about doctors and other healthcare workers? I laugh, sorry. Many presume them to be experts in all fields related to medicine and nutrition. But is this extending their expertise too far? For example, during the COVID hysteria of 2021, many healthcare professionals advocated for lockdowns and the domestic passports. This was science in opposition to it was misinformation or may not be misinformation, but COVID restrictions were normative statements, not indisputable facts. That was pretty good when I read that. That made a lot of sense to me. Of course, this distinction has been lost on a generation of scientists who see no value in philosophy. So with this in mind, it's crucial to differentiate between real cannabis experts and the pseudo-experts of public health. This journalist only brings it up because of recent paper published in Public Health Nutrition regarding the experts who decide U.S. government dietary guidelines. I still laugh about a lot of the U.S. dietary guidelines. About just a lot of it's just garbage. They found that 95% of the committee members had conflicts of interest with the food or the pharmaceutical industries. There you go. There it is. So can you trust cannabis experts? Generally, you can trust your local cannabis experts, whether bud tenders, growers, or extractors. Even when illegal or unregulated, these people consume the product they've been producing. They have zero incentives to harm themselves or others. But what about the so-called public health experts on boards and member committees? In the study referenced above, 95% of the so-called expert had financial ties to lobbying groups and large corporations, companies like Albert, Cargill, Dannon, General Mills, Kellogg's, Kraft, Mead, Johnson, McDonald's, Nestle, Pepsi, and Syngenta. The people dictating the optimal American diet are in bed with corporations selling ultra-processed junk foods and pesticides. It is any wonder that the American obesity rates have tripled over the last 60 years. Likewise, 75% of the Food and Drug Administration's funding comes from the pharmaceutical industries. Should we be surprised that Reefer Madness is making a comeback? A non-toxic flower pharma company cannot patent, does not bode well for the profiteering scams. If you look at pictures from like the 1930s, 40s, and 50s of people walking around this planet, and you go to today and you look at pictures all over the place, you're going to see a lot different body types. And I'm not making fun. It's just that we are in this country here. There's, I think, 14 or 15 ingredients that are banned in almost every country around the world, and we're getting served them. So we don't know. A lot of people don't know what the labels mean when they're reading the backs of boxes. Mm-hmm. A lot of big words, confusion. Can you trust cannabis experts? Some say yes, others says not at all. The corporate press will claim certain facts are misinformation without explanation. But it's up to you to determine what is accurate. And you can only do this when presented with all the available information, whether factual or not. But where in the world where doing your own research has negative connotations, which is telling. It's similar to the Bill Hicks joke. What are you reading for? Not what are you reading, but what are you reading for? Don't you know the experts have already established the correct opinions? Never mind that the experts crafting the government's diet and medicine guidelines have clear conflicts of interest. These people are not, nor will they ever be, cannabis experts. And a little word from RFK Jr. is condemned as an anti-vaxxer, that saturated fat is associated with heart disease, or that cannabis causes psychosis and schizophrenia. Who benefits from your trust? Are they worthy of it? Is it in your best interest to listen to them, or should you do your own research? I thought that was a very good article because do your own research. Mm-hmm. Do your own research. I research every day on cannabis, and I'll tell you I'm not an expert because I read an article last week, and I would say a friend from Mississippi posted on our YouTube that Mississippi does not allow home grow. And I remember reading that article and thought that was weird too. So afterwards I looked it up and saw that I remember, because I remember Mississippi is not home grow state, and it was on the article that I read by Forbes. So
the article from Forbes said it was
yes,
legal?
when they listed all the states and how much you can grow.
So someone corrected you. Good.
Well, not corrected me. I caught it too, but I just let it go.
Right.
And it was from somebody who we read an article about, the nurse and doctor article from Mississippi.
Yeah.
She or he or whoever reached out to me said, hey, we don't allow, and I remember it, but I wasn't even going to say anything about it. And I remember I went to Forbes and sent to Forbes also, but I wasn't going to mention it on the podcast. Right. But it was great that somebody has my back and just caught that also. Yeah. So I appreciate people.
Because, again, yes.
We all make mistakes in this world. Right. And I'm not an expert. I'm learning every day. So
well, and I think that it's really important that,
but I also know people listening to me. So it's great.
That's great. But then that becomes a responsibility for us to not be sharing information that's just, I mean, we're vetting articles and authors and publications and things that are reputable.
Upon books.
Right. And there's going to be a time where we're going to share something that maybe the person their article didn't get checked very well.
Right.
And they put out some misinformation. There's going to be times where we do that. But what I was going to say too is Google can be your friend and Google can be your enemy.
Oh, yeah.
And just because you Google search a topic and things show up. And just because it's the first thing that pops up on page 1 of your search efforts doesn't mean it's a good source of information. So instead of just clicking on articles, click on the source, click on the article, but go to that article source and see who they are and what it is and see if it's reputable. You could be reading complete garbage. And I just think it's really important to be careful where you get your information
and
from.
see if those articles have sources themselves down at the bottom. See if there's like 4 or 5 different,
it could
sources.
Be just
it's someone's opinion. Sometimes it's someone's opinion. Right. Sometimes I like that because I like the topic and I like reading people's opinions. And also some of these articles' opinions are very well done.
Right.
And I like that people are communicating me back if I read wrong information.
I think it's great.
Because I think you have to hold me accountable just as much as I hold myself accountable for doing this show. So that's the big deal. So when I have people reach out all the time about certain articles that I've read and talk to me about it, and it might happen in their state. Now, sometimes
and laws are constantly changing too.
Constantly, yes.
And that's probably the biggest area where I would say, if you're just reading about weed and basics and this and that, whatever. A lot of opinion is good, right? And maybe a lot of opinion isn't.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for like specific laws and the rules and the guidelines for the state that you live in or your township or whatever and how they feel about cannabis, don't let us or one article be your source. Check around in multiple places. Contact your state representatives. Go on your government, your state government website, and your laws will be laid out there.
Go to NORML. Yeah, too.
Yeah, go to NORML, NORML, and they have state-by-state laws and rules. So, again, that's
that's why I'm always researching further into stuff, too. I might see an article that we might have talked about maybe 6 months ago, but there's new information that comes out, and I look for that sometimes, I try to find it, too, just because it could be updates. So same thing, like you always hear me talk about terpenes a lot because there's always updates on terpenes. There's always more. They're finding out what they can do. So I'm always going to research that. So yeah, I appreciate everybody out there that always looks out for me because hopefully we're looking out for you. This is how community works, and this is how friendships work, and building around the world friendships, So thank you. Hospice, one of the most saddest, or depends, like the end is near, right? Yeah. And your loved ones or yourself or whatever could end in hospice one day. And, there's a point where you want to spend those last hours with that person, but at least want them to have some kind of normality. So
quality.
And quality. We're not being filled with a bunch of fucking hard drugs like morphine and all that other stuff, so you can't even enjoy that person's last moments with them. So can medical marijuana help at the end?
Yeah. So this is an article named Hospice and Medical Marijuana, Helping at the End. When the time of passing is close, emotions run high. When hospice is involved, it helps, but the pain of an upcoming loss and all of life's unresolved issues are still left to handle. Does cannabis help in those final hours? In the moments with palliative or hospice care, anything that can help makes a difference. Palliative care is a medical care for people living with a serious illness such as cancer or heart failure. Patients in palliative care may receive medical care for their symptoms or palliative care, along with treatment intended to cure their serious illness. Hospice care, though, focuses on the care, comfort, and quality of life of a person with a serious illness who is now approaching the end of life. Hospice is prescribed when a path to cure has come to an end, and the focus changes to making a patient comfortable until their life ends. 2 evidence-based guidelines address the use of medical marijuana in a palliative care setting. The first evidence-based guideline explicitly recommends against the use of medical cannabis as a first or second-line option for palliative cancer pain. The guideline suggests that it could be considered in the case of refractory symptoms and with careful consideration of potential risks. The second, evidence-based guideline similarly recommends that medical marijuana only be used in the palliative care setting when other treatments have failed and after consideration of the potential for adverse events and drug interactions. So now remember, this is like their medical condition. They're dying. The person is dying.
Right.
And so you'd think, well, who cares? Like pretty much at this time, if there's no more treatment, the person's not on medications to cure their illness. Oftentimes they have brought in, because there's so much pain involved, they bring in morphine.
The heavy hitters.
And the morphine actually helps to assist in your death and make it a little easier. But I have been told it does speed up the process. And so they're saying at this time, which is interesting, that cannabis shouldn't be that first line. It shouldn't be, pain medications. It shouldn't be number 2, morphine. It has to come after that if there is some benefit from it.
Just give me a bunch of cannabis and that's it. Right. Just let me be fun
the
and
point
bubbly.
is you may be in excruciating pain.
Right.
And cannabis may not, we don't know.
It might
not be
I agree.
helpful at that point.
Give it to me anyway, though.
It sounds like a great idea, right? Go out with a bong in your hand. In study after study, medical marijuana can help increase appetite, relieve painful constipation, and help with overall pain. Hospice focuses on well-being, knowing there isn't going to be a long-term cure. Currently, most science shows medical marijuana manages symptoms but does not cure any serious ailment or injury. Perhaps equally important, marijuana is used in the hospice care setting to ease spiritual and existential suffering. Some studies show an important therapeutic role for patients faced with the despair of a terminal illness, loss of functions, and a lifetime of reflections. A mild euphoria or sense of well-being can ease a patient's mind, body, and spirit as they come to terms with their fate. In 2019, a study was conducted among hospice professionals. About half of the respondents were nurses, followed by administrators and physicians. Regardless of legal status, hospice staff members were overwhelmingly in agreement that medical marijuana is an important tool in supporting their patients. Though medical marijuana is legal in 40 states, plus the District of Columbia, conflicting federal laws present a challenge for hospice and palliative care programs whose patients are interested in medical cannabis or already use it to manage their pain and other symptoms. The situation is particularly challenging for hospices, which are primarily funded by Medicare. Many hospices say they cannot legally prescribe medical marijuana because it remains a Schedule I controlled substance under federal law. So in my opinion, I think that this is the perfect space to develop a workaround. Especially if you're living in a legal state, why can't you kind of facilitate your own cannabis? And then your hospice nurse isn't treating you with it. You're dying anyway. You're going to die.
Right.
That's known at this point. There's no going back. So your hospice nurse isn't going to get in trouble if you die. So if you have decided it's your end days and you want to freaking get blitzed, and you tell your buddy Joe to go get you a freaking ounce, and you're just going to sit there and smoke that shit until you can't see straight. And your hospice care nurse comes in that day, and they're like, it's time for morphine. And you're so freaking baked that the morphine doesn't do you good. They're not going to get in trouble for it.
Right.
Right? So I think that there can be workarounds in legal states. And I'm sure, your buddy Joe could go get it from his guy.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a guy.
That's
right?
it.
Sorry, a little tangent there. Just when you're in that point, you got to do what's right for you and forget the federal laws. Figure out a workaround.
That's it. Cannabinoid ratios, why they matter. It could be confusing at times, ratios, and what do they mean? I get asked a lot about ratios and what's good for pain and what's good for THC to CBD, but don't forget there's other ratios now too with all the other cannabinoids that are coming out in this cannabis industry. So, but understanding how ratios help predict the effects of full spectrum cannabis. Full spectrum cannabis contains the entire spectrum of more than 100 phytocannabinoids, but those cannabinoids are not present in equal amounts. Knowing the ratio of one cannabinoid to another can help you predict what the effects of that cannabis could be. How breeding influences cannabinoid ratios, and this hypothesized that before THC was identified as a cannabinoid responsible for making people feel high, that there were more balanced cannabinoid ratios in landrace cultivars, those bred by nature rather than intentional human breeding. They kept getting bred to go higher and higher in THC, so most strains have very low CBD, said Dennis Hunter, co-founder of CannaCraft, who produces CBD-rich products under the brand name Care by Design. Thankfully, in 2008, the first cannabis testing lab in the United States opened their doors, and Steep Hill Labs modernized the science of cannabis lab testing with help from Harborside. Thanks to their testing and research, Steep Hill and Harborside can even be credited with rediscovering CBD. Other early CBD pioneers responsible for the industry game changers are Fred Gardner and Martin Lee, who worked with the grower Wade Logiter to start Project CBD. Beyond starting Project CBD, Wade also is the breeder who created Harlequin, one of the early CBD-rich cultivars identified by Steep Hill. Now, more and more cultivars are breeding for the complete cannabinoid and terpene profile rather than just THC. I know somebody that's doing that right now, too. You'll find out soon on another episode with this breeder. How do cannabinoid ratios affect you? Every cannabinoid ratio will produce different, sometimes radically different outcomes, so it's important to know what the expected effects of a given ratio could be. You should also pay attention that the bigger number in the ratio is the cannabinoid. You want it to be, example, if you don't want to be very high, make sure it's a 4-to-1 CBD to THC instead of the opposite. Ratios with more THC than CBD. It is unlikely that you will see cannabinoid ratios offered with more THC than CBD. But if you do, a 1-to-2 or a 1-to-4 CBD to TH ratio would probably be the most common and would still make you feel high, but there would be some CBD to potentially calm some of the intoxicating effects. These ratios would likely be good for people who are sensitive to THC but still curious about trying it, though a 1-to-1 ratio might be a better way to start, as it would even contain more CBD. A 1-to-1 balanced ratio. A 1-to-1 ratio of CBD to THC is equal parts of each cannabinoid and is possibly the most common ratio found in cannabis products. It is a wide variety of product types in edibles, tinctures, capsules, topicals, and possibly even flower or extracts. This is a good ratio to start with people who are new to THC, but curious what it would be like to feel high. I disagree. I think somebody new to cannabis should be doing a 20-to-1 or a 10-to-1 or a 4-to-1, higher on the CBD, lower on the THC spectrum, to get your body used to what it's going to feel like. And then once you feel better with your ratios, go to a 1-to-1. And then you might possibly just go straight to THC or try other cannabinoids with that instead. So, because there is other cannabinoids out there that are just as good as CBD and THC and work just as good for inflammation and pain and all that stuff. So low CBD to THC. The most common low CBD THC ratios are 2-to-1, 3-to-1, and 4-to-1, which all have similar effects profiles with minimal euphoria from THC and more medical benefits from the CBD. Made even stronger by the presence of THC, though the ensemble effect, these ratios are also very good for pain. But as CBD has benefits for numerous conditions, ranging from cancer to skin conditions like eczema, these ratios can be used for a wide range of medical conditions. High CBD to THC. There's a bit even of a jump, the low and high CBD to THC ratio products, with the lowest high CBD THC ratios sold being around 8-to-1 and ranging as high as 40-to-1. While the low CBD THC ratios still have some minimal euphoria from THC, unless someone is taking a very high dose, it is unlikely that the 8-to-1 and higher ratios will produce a feeling of intoxication. Specifically, ratios above 18-to-1 CBD to THC are commonly used in cases of pediatric epilepsy, as they do not produce intoxication. Aside from epilepsy, high CBD to THC ratios can be useful for a wide range of conditions, just like lower ratios of CBD to THC. But the additional CBD may change the impacts in your body, just like one needs to do some trial and error to know their dose with edibles. There's some trial and error to figure out the best cannabinoid ratio for your needs. What the research on ratios say. Most research on cannabinoid ratios can be lumped into two categories: research on a 1-to-1 balance on THC and CBD, and research on a high CBD to THC ratios for epilepsy. The researchers on the high CBD THC ratio for epilepsy is pretty unanimous, and CBD is beneficial for some types of epilepsy in some people. The research on a 1-to-1 balance ratio has primarily focused on the product Sativex, which is a tincture taken orally and is approved by symptomatic relief of pain in advanced cancer and multiple sclerosis. Cinnamon Bidwell is a neurologist at the University of Colorado Boulder's Institute of Cognitive Science and has offered a caveat emptor to cannabis consumers. The marketing and the consumer lore is far ahead of what the research can really support. Ratios, not just CBD and THC. While this article has focused on the ratio of CBD to THC, it is important to consider that the more than 100 other phytocannabinoids, as well as terpenes and other chemicals like alkaloids. For example, as we discussed for the canna beginners, while the research on it is mixed, some people see benefits for sleep from using CBN. As both CBD and THC can also benefit for sleep, rather than just using one cannabinoid, consider using ratios such as a 2-1-1 CBN THC to CBD. On this topic, the American Society for Testing and Materials, D37, committed on cannabis, was just meeting in Denver, and one of the standards they're working on is regarding how cannabinoid ratios can be best presented to consumers. There's other products out there that you'll see. It would be like a 4 different cannabinoids or 3 different cannabinoids and different ratios in there, and you'll eventually going to see more. I've said this in the past. I've been saying this for a while now. The person or the grower or the cultivars that we can find that has higher in the other cannabinoids is going to be the winner of this race. Mm-hmm. So that was a good article by High Times. When you're high on marijuana, Mrs. Weedman, what happens to you?
When you're high, your thoughts are high. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
Yeah. When you consume cannabis, the experience is markedly different due to its psychoactive effects altering your perception of the world around you. In addition to its psychoactive properties, cannabis can trigger a release of dopamine, providing an extra rush of pleasure. As you indulge, you may find that all your senses and nerve endings go into overdrive, heightening your sensitivity to touch, sound, and more. It's as if an angel is speaking when you hear someone's voice, and everything around you undergoes an immediate transformation. Contrasts become more profound, sunsets take on a different hue, and you fall in love with the sunset itself. The desire for physical contact intensifies, and the pleasure derived from it becomes immeasurable. It's a state of being where you become acutely aware of every little detail, reigniting your passion for life. It's a feeling you wish to prolong, as if you want to remain enveloped in that euphoria indefinitely. Cannabis is not only a recreational substance, but also used as a medication to treat various illnesses. Witnessing its impact firsthand, I once observed a daughter who had been plagued by seizures experience an immediate relief when she started using cannabis, spending an entire week without a single sign of seizure. Personally, I have found it beneficial for addressing my sleep problems and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, bringing respite to my restless mind. Moreover, it has awakened my appetite, transforming me from a thin individual into someone who now enjoys eating and has developed an affinity for snacks. My relationship with weed is profound, and I have no intention of ceasing its use, even if that possibility exists in the afterlife. However, it's crucial to remember that not all weed strains are the same. Depending on the type, their effects can vary significantly. Some strains excel at relieving pain, while others have sedative properties. The terpenes found in cannabis can also provide relief from anxiety and depression. It's worth noting that in certain cases, weed something got messed up here. Weed use may exasperate depression or induce feelings of paranoia. If faced with such circumstances, it's recommended to have lemon juice on hand, as the chemicals present in lemons can help mitigate the effects of weed. Peppercorns are a big help too. Take a big whiff, and before long, you will feel calm. And I will say, very cool, just yesterday we went to a barbecue, and it was a pool party. And so we were in the pool passing joints around, and talk about like floating. When we've done that at the beach, you take a couple hits and then you get out on a raft and just float on the lake. And on a calm lake day, you just feel like it's just it's such a cool feeling.
Oh yeah,
just that like weightless feeling intensifies. But there's a lot of strains that make my senses so mean. Like they're just on like crazy high levels. My hearing gets like, I feel like a dog. Like, what's that? What's that? What's that? Every little noise outside, I think it's right in front of the house. Colors become brighter.
Oh yeah, it's the best.
There's certain strains that do that more than others.
Yep.
Yeah.
You forgot to read one last line of this article, though.
I did?
The stoners make the world a better place.
Huh. I took that out. It just didn't seem to fall into it. But yeah, stoners do make the world a better place. For sure.
Crazy. Maryland, they went recreational on July 1st. All their doors for dispensaries were opening up. They did $10.4 million the first weekend in sales.
I think some people wanted some
Well,
weed.
you opened it up on the perfect weekend, too. 4th of July weekend. Oh, my goodness. So good for you, Maryland. Florida Attorney General argues that marijuana legalization ballot measure misleads voters in brief to Supreme Court. They are really trying to stop this from going on the ballot this time around. It's such bullshit. And here's the crazy thing about it. They went and got the signatures. You're just afraid because this time it's going to pass. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to do whatever they can to not make this go recreational. But if this law passes, if it gets on the ballot and it passes, like there's enough votes for it, and they try to put a stop to this, because they're going to. Know they're going to go to the Supreme Court. They're going to do whatever they can to stop this. That means they don't care about the voters. They don't care about our vote. We mean nothing to them. That's all I'm going to say about that. Now, here's something even crazier. The city of West Palm Beach, Florida, moves closer to banning marijuana dispensaries. West Palm Beach, what is wrong with you?
That's so bizarre, too, because West Palm Beach is...
You know how much weed I've smoked in West Palm Beach? I worked at so many bars down there.
On every other corner.
I mean, the city of West Palm Beach is moving closer to banning future medical cannabis dispensaries. There are already 9 located within the city limits, and the Commissioner, Christy Fox, plans to vote in favor of a proposed ordinance to keep those in place but not allow any new ones. Stupid.
It's like it's a international airport area, West Palm Beach. I mean, that's the core of West Palm Beach. It's a transit
Palm
area.
Beach County, it's that.
Right. So you have all sorts of commercial businesses.
Foolish.
They had a Greyhound. I mean, so many things. That's crazy.
Major marijuana industry players launched Super PAC to advance cannabis reform as the 2024 election heats up. Coalition of Cannabis Businesses, now wait who they are, ready? Groups has launched a new Super PAC that will work to raise the profile of cannabis as a national issue in the 2024 election and beyond. As part of the strategy will involve finding industry partners to ask their customers to make roundup donations at the point of sale when shopping at dispensaries. The U.S. Cannabis Council announced on Wednesday that it has a member business have formed Legalize America Super PAC, which, unlike traditional political action committees, can accept contributions of any size but cannot directly coordinate with political candidates. Despite public support for ending cannabis prohibition, the coalition says that Congress is stuck in the past, so the Super PAC will help speed things up. Right now, Legalize America membership overlaps with the USCC, which counts among its partners ATACH, Canopy Growth, Columbia Care, Cureleaf, Cresco, Kronos Group, Dutchie, Houseplant, Marijuana Policy Project, PAX, PharmaCann, Scott's Miracle Grow, baby, and Vincetti, and among many others. But if you just, those ones that I just read, they're the major players in the country. So Black Missourians fear cannabis microbusiness license will fail them. I will read a little bit about that more in a minute, but this was a really good article. And after operating a cannabis cuisine and edibles business, St. Louis Space Treats, Johnson D. hopes to someday open a dispensary under the same name in Missouri. I hope so. So, fiscally responsible GOP lawmakers kill cannabis legalization amendment in Wisconsin again. Oh, my goodness. GOP Senator, cancer survivor who used medical marijuana, urges reform before it's too late. Republican Senator Bill Rabin made a last-ditch legislative maneuver to ensure that his medical marijuana bill becomes law in North Carolina. Good for him. Keep on going. Get that stuff going in North Carolina. Labor union urges Biden and marijuana prohibition to protect workers, prevent monopolies. Yes. U.S. Forest Service says state marijuana legalization drives uptick in positive THC tests for federal workers as perceptions have shifted dramatically. Yes, of course. They're all burners from back in. I mean, most forest people, they come on now. I mean, it's let them smoke after work. Arizona shoppers increase marijuana spending. New Mexico group looks to rebalance cannabis industry. Missouri's prep for cannabis microbusinesses opportunity. Missourians interested in enjoying the state's cannabis market can buy a ticket for the lottery to get in, reported Missouri Independent. The cost of their ticket is a $1,500 application fee for a chance to partake in the lottery, where a limited number of cannabis microbusiness licenses are up for grabs. Hence, Black Missourians saying that they feel worried about the lottery. If they do not get selected, the payment is refundable. Well, that's cool. Unlike here in Illinois, when you went to apply for a license, you didn't get your money back.
Yeah.
Missouri is expected to distribute 48 microbusiness licenses this year under the Amendment 3. I understand it's not a lot, but if they do more, I mean, there'll be more tries. Abigail Vivis, the state's new chief equity officer, held several outreach events recently, during which she went through all the eligibility requirements for a microbusiness license. New regulations in California capital target illegal cannabis grows, and marijuana possession limits in Nevada doubled. Wow. They want people to stay in Nevada, huh? All Cureleaf cannabis dispensaries in Jersey unionized as a member of the UFCW. I'm happy that you're going union in a lot of ways, but I'm also disappointed because I keep on saying form your own unions. Connecticut also, cannabis companies gear up for unions. Come together. Senate committee approves bill allowing VA to recommend pot to veterans in legal states. It's about fucking time, but it's just a committee. So now it has to get approved. Let's go. Etiquette. We love the beach. And we go to some beaches that aren't legal in that state.
Yeah.
So there's etiquette that you should do, especially going to a state that doesn't have dispensaries. That's not legal. It's not even decriminalized. There's maybe you can get CBD in that state, which is every state, but there's some etiquette for the beach, and we love the beach.
This is just general cannabis beach day etiquette. This doesn't talk about legalities, although it identifies something very interesting. So let's go. The sounds of crashing waves softly nestled into warm sand with the sun's rays on your shoulders. That's what a beach day is all about. Under the right circumstances, a little cannabis could be the perfect cherry on top of that experience. While we may not pop a gummy on a day trip to the beach with our kids, there's a right time for cannabis on a beach day. On those truly relaxing days in the sand where there's no responsibilities, a conscious dose of weed could be simply delightful. Of course, lighting a big old joint in a public space is neither legal nor appropriate. There's etiquette to all public consumption, and that's especially true in places like the beach. So let's talk about beach etiquette for cannabis consumers. Following the rules. The first major hurdle for those interested in getting a little lifted and laying back on a beach towel is that many beaches are on federal land. So it's kind of a double whammy if you're in an illegal state and you're on federal property.
The thing about when they talk about federal property that kills me the most is, how does the federal government?
How do they own it?
How do they? Not even just own it. How do they get the money to make it federal land or call it federal land when it's taxpayer land?
Mm-hmm. It's our land.
It's
and
everybody's
before
land.
Ours, it was.
It's everybody's land. It's not the federal government's land.
It's just.
They made
America's land.
They made the boundaries so you can't build on it. It's protected for like not killing anything on there and not being able to grow, farm, whatever. But that is not the government. Is not Biden and this Congress and Senate and everybody. And they don't own that. The American people, everybody,
indigenous,
everybody
before us,
everybody owns that land. Go ahead. Sorry.
So. Now, the conversation of who owns the beach is a complicated one. Here you go. At the root of everything, indigenous tribes own the beach. At the root of the law, it varies. Federal entities generally manage, maintain, and own public beaches with bathrooms and lifeguards. However, the ownership of beaches directly in front of private property has long been debated in many coastal states. As a realtor, I will tell you that you can have water rights, you can have land rights, you can have air rights, and some states you own water into a certain depth or off of the shore. Anyway, in Maine, the public may still have access to privately owned beaches. The same is true in California. It's important to know who owns the property before bringing any cannabis products. If the property is federally owned, having an errant joint or edible is highly illegal. But if the land is owned by the state or privately and public consumption law allows it, it may be okay to publicly consume at the beach. So, if the laws and the stars align and it's okay to partake at the shore, remember to be polite, which often translates into discretion. Choose to vape over smoking or consume a low-dose edible like a canned drink or a gummy. These options are ideal because they won't smell like pot, an aroma that could offend neighboring beach dwellers. And clean up after yourself. One of the most important tenets to carry onto public lands is to leave no trace. In many states where cannabis is legal, there are joint tubes and mylar bags littering gutters and parks. Don't be that person. Be conscious of any litter. Make sure to pack up or throw away any packaging, even the top after it's ripped off of that bag of gummies. If smoking is your thing, don't ash or throw roaches in the sand. Instead, consider bringing a portable pocket ashtray. A disposable cup can work in a pinch too. The best way to show non-consumers that cannabis consumption isn't threatening is to be respectful. Those planning to soak up some rays and dips in the waves this summer should follow these tips. Honestly, understanding the law, being polite, and leaving no trace isn't only core to cannabis beach etiquette, it covers most public consumption situations.
I'm such a dumbass.
Why?
Because I was really baked, and I smoked some more, and I got really baked, and I put myself on mute for a second. And when we were talking about federal land and not being the government,
Were you on mute?
I was on mute. So everybody that's now catching up, because it was probably going to be like a 15-second, 20-second like.
Here's Mr. Weedman.
With only Mrs. Weedman saying indigenous people own the land. This is what I said. The federal government doesn't own that land. The federal government made the boundaries so it's protected, so you can't hunt, you can't farm, you can't build property on that land, you can't drill a lot. It's federal land. But the federal land is a boundary that they put. The indigenous people own that land, the American people own that land, the taxpayers own that land, and it should be used correctly with the boundaries in mind and be protected and safe. But the federal government gets the money from us as the taxpayers. They do not own that. No government should own property around this world. Us earthlings, it's owned by the earth, and the earthlings are here for a while to use it. We should be able to go to anywhere we want, and as long as we're safe, keeping other people in mind, and keeping the earth clean, it is our earth to enjoy. So now that you heard me, that's what I actually originally said. So that 20 seconds, that delay, it wasn't. I just was stoned. Sorry. Like I said, I'm not an expert. International news. Ukraine's president says legalizing medical cannabis can help people impacted by trauma of war with Russia. It's going to be a while before you can get some cannabis and be able to grow there. So, but hopefully maybe Canada can give like some of that 1.3 billion in wasted weed and send it over there for the people to use instead of burning it and throwing it away. Luxembourg Parliament votes to legalize marijuana possession and cultivation, making it its second EU country to end prohibition. Good for you, Luxembourg. Hell yes. Hell yeah. Let's fucking go. The epic global battle over marijuana, worthy of a Marvel movie. It is time for a summer blockbuster, and Marvel usually wins the epic big screen battle. But in the real world, another one is heating up. The global effort to reclassifying marijuana received a recent key boost. With the U.S. president, global leaders, villains, billions of dollars, history, millions of victims, and hundreds of millions consumers, this could have a massive effect. The West versus East showdown now has changing players and facts play as a part. The first international drug war was the Opium Wars back in the 19th century when Western countries led by the United Kingdom forced China to open their borders to provide opium to the rest of the world. China lost and tried to push back during the Boxer Rebellion of the 1900s, but lost again. Japan, Russia, the United States, and more were caught up in the action, and it made daily international news. In a major shakeup in the cannabis war, division of the United Nations, UN, seems to be switching sides. The UN Office of Drugs and Crime is marketing the World Drugs Day the theme People First. Stop stigma and discrimination, strengthen prevention, and launch another edition of the World Drug Report. The UNODC continues to fail in raising concerns over the continued use of the death penalty for drug-related offenses, despite a sharp increase in executions last year. In 1925, the League of Nations, the precursor of the United Nations during the Plenipotentiary Conference, first regulated cannabis worldwide in 1936, had anti-traffic conventions. Man, I'm stoned. Sorry, everybody. By the 1960s, marijuana was generally illegal but consumed in most parts of the world. In 1972, the Dutch divided drugs into more and less dangerous categories, cannabis being in the lesser category. According, possession of 30 grams or less was made a misdemeanor. Cannabis has been made available for recreational use in their coffee shops since 1976, making Amsterdam an iconic marijuana tourist destination. In 1996, California became the first U.S. state to legalize medical cannabis in defiance of federal law. Canada followed in 2001. In 2001, Portugal decriminalized all drugs, maintaining the prohibition on production and sale, but changing personal possession and use from a criminal offense to an administrative one. Subsequently, a number of European and Latin American countries decriminalized cannabis, such as Belgium in 2003, Chile in 2005, Brazil in 2006, and Czech Republic in 2010. In 2013, Uruguay legalized recreational cannabis, then the first country in the modern era to legalize cannabis. More Western world and South American countries leaned into the science of medical marijuana and the data proving cannabis is less harmful than alcohol. China, Russia, Eastern Africa, and Middle East took an opposite stance, increased draconian punishments. The failed war on drugs continues to reap as horrible harvests or ruined lives and economic devastation. Reports by Amnesty International and Harm Reduction International show people who are marginalized, including because of their socioeconomic status, ethnicity, mental or intellectual disability, and nationality, continue to be disproportionately impacted for drug-related crimes. The situation sharply deteriorated during 2022 as the record number of people executed for drug-related offenses increased by more than 100% in 2022 compared to the previous year. As reported by Amnesty International, executions for drug-related offenses amounted to more than a third of all executions recorded globally. Jeez. Executions for drug-related offenses were confirmed in Iran, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, and China, likely occurring in Vietnam as well, where state secrecy is prevalent. Added to the remix is a slowing-moving President Biden and U.S. decriminalizations in Canada, Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau, allowing the international cannabis trade despite the UN former cartel kingdom. Colombia is working to legalize marijuana and become the weed basket of the world with their outdoor grow. Pete Davidson, Rihanna, Elon Musk, and other bold-faced celebrities join international conglomerates like Constellation Brands, Alteria, Almanation, Couche-Tard, and Imperial Brands to embrace. That's what it said. I know it sounded like it sounded.
No, it's you're high. That's all.
I am to embrace legalization both nationally and beyond. It was a good article. Sorry I fucked it up so much. Damn GG4.
No, I could just tell you were high. That's all.
Crazy. This person gets arrested for 2 joints and spent 7 years in prison.
Yeah.
But the ending of the story is great.
Yes. Now he owns a cannabis company that donates profits to help people like him. This is an as-told essay based on a conversation with Bernard Noble and has been edited for length and clarity. So this is in first person. This is Bernard Noble speaking. I love to cook. I'm the oldest of 6 kids, and my mama always had me beside her in the kitchen. She'd tell me to watch the food and listen to the food, and she'd bop me if I burned anything. I started selling Cajun dishes like gumbo and yakamain, a sort of beef and noodle soup that's a sworn hangover cure in New Orleans. 1 week into 2010, I drove to the Big Easy to visit family and pick up meat to cook and sell back in Kansas City, where I'd relocated after Hurricane Katrina. My life changed that weekend. I went to look for friends who I knew had gone to buy something to smoke. As we walked back to my dad's, what felt like 50 police cars swooped in. I made eye contact with a black officer, and it felt so personal between us, as two black men from Louisiana. I wasn't scared when he told me I wasn't going to get out from under this. Maybe I should have been worried. I had less than an ounce of weed on me, about enough for 2 joints, but I was sentenced to 13 and a half years in prison.
That's fucking nuts.
Ridiculous. Going to prison ruined my family. I was dad to 7 kids when I was arrested. Some of them I had young, but for the past 14 years, I had been in a relationship, and we were raising our 3 kids together. When you're in the system and you have no resources, your family is torn apart. I didn't have money to call. After a while, it felt like my family had forgotten about me. It was like I had died, but worse, because my kids felt abandoned. In prison, mail is everything. If you get mail, it means someone cares about you. You have support, love, and money, maybe even some snacks from the outside. When you have none of that, the other prisoners know you're vulnerable. I never had mail. I spent a lot of time crying in prison. I felt so unloved. That changed when my case started getting some attention. Just a few years after I was arrested, states started legalizing marijuana. People were making money off this industry while I was serving time for 2 joints. I wasn't the only one who thought this was wrong. The Innocence Project and the Marshall Project started advocating for me. Then I was featured in the documentary, Grass is Greener. When I started getting letters from supporters, it changed how I walked. I stuck my chest out and walked with pride for the first time in many years. Finally, the support paid off, and I was released on parole after more than 7 years in prison. Still, the damage wasn't over. My being in prison took something from my kids that I can't put back. My daughter used to wait in the window for me like a little puppy. We loved eating Subway together, but when I got out of prison, she told me I didn't have the right to parent her. That has been taken away from me, and I was so angry about it. To this day, I'm trying to do rights for my wrongs. I'll never forget walking into a dispensary for the first time. There was an armed guard at the door. He opened it for me and said, "Welcome." I thought he was playing me. For years, I'd been guarded by men with guns. Now a guard was welcoming me to do the exact thing that had put me in prison. That had to be super surreal. Being black and coming from my background meant opportunities were scarce. I had nothing. Legal cannabis offered me a chance to build a better life, and I was determined to take it back. I co-founded Be Noble, a cannabis brand that donates 10% of its profits to end marijuana-related incarceration. I'm writing this on my 57th birthday. I'm married for the first time, and we have a baby on the way. I'm extremely excited to build this new family while continuing to heal my relationship with my older kids. I get to share my story, educate people about this plant, and yes, make some money. God didn't present me with many opportunities when I was younger, but now that he has, I'm going to take advantage. So I went on to look up his brand. Here in Illinois, it's distributed by Curaleaf, and it is called Be Noble. And he stands by the mission of be aware, be invested, and be noble. And Be Noble is sold here in Illinois, and the Illinois proceeds help the North Lawndale Employment Network, who assist North Lawndale, that's a Chicago neighborhood, residents through innovative employment initiatives that lead to economic advancement and an improved quality of life. So that's a good cause. That is a kind of a struggling Chicago neighborhood that just doesn't get resources from the city, from what I understand. I don't know anyone that lives there, but I know that there's a need for help there. So pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. And cool that he gets to turn that around. But could you imagine being imprisoned for 7 years for that? Your whole family gets torn apart. Then you come out and now you can walk into a dispensary. Like he said, like how I'm walking in and he's holding the door open for me.
Right.
But so cool that he got to turn his story into a success at the end. And hopefully his kids receive him and they can heal their long
hope so.
separation.
Yeah, absolutely. Majority of NFL players use cannabis. Chiefs Travis Cleese explains how they pass test. Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Cleese, who was once kicked off his college team for testing positive for marijuana, said that nowadays a majority of National Football League NFL players are using cannabis. One of the NFL legends whose brother, Jason Cleese, is playing for the Philadelphia Eagles, told Vanity Fair that he was embarrassed for failing the test back then, which resulted in a suspension and a loss of college season. However, as regulations around cannabis continue to evolve and legalization gains momentum, the NFL is finally taking notice. Following adjustments to NFL's cannabis policy, players now face reduced penalties for testing positive for marijuana after rules were amended in 2021. That obliged players to undergo one weed test per year at the start of training camp. If you just stop using in the middle of July, you're fine, Cleese said. A lot of guys stop a week before and they still pass because everybody's working out in the heat and sweating their tail off. Nobody's getting hit anymore. He estimates that between 50% to 80% of the players in the league are now using cannabis, building on previous estimates from former tight end Martellus Bennett, who suggested that 89% of players consume it, according to USA Today. Why such a high rate of cannabis use? One of the reasons is likely the fact that CBD is proven alternative to opioids for pain treatment. Former NFL great Jim McMahon treated his immense pain with opioids and other painkillers until he turned to cannabis after retiring from a 15-season career. And he's not alone. Latest to join the team Cannabis is veteran wide receiver Deshaun Jackson, who agreed on Tuesday to become become a featured spokesperson and stakeholder for Pineapple Inc., Pineapple Wellness brand of CBD products. In a progressive move last year, the league authorized $1 million in grants to fund studies focusing on marijuana and its components in pain management and neuroprotection for football players with concussions. Last week, the NFL and the NFL Players Association expressed their continued support for research of CBD as an alternative pain treatment for NFL players. Continuing with the commitment to provide the best care for players, at NFLPA have jointly awarded $526,525 in grants to research to study alternative pain management methods, including CBD, the NFL tweeted. That's great. Finally. And then I read another thing I'll read on the next episode about the NCAA. So it just needs to, instead of giving them opioids and painkillers and all that stuff, CBD, THC, there's so many other cannabinoids you should be studying out there, CBG, CBC, CBN, so many more that I think the NFL is missing out on. Especially CBG, the mother of all cannabinoids for inflammation and pain relief. CBC, which is great for overall brain health. I'm hoping that one day they'll do some studies on CBC with concussion syndrome. Hopefully we'll start seeing some studies with that. I've done a little reading about it, but I'm not an expert, so I'm not even going to talk about it until I see some full-blown research about it. So, but yes, I think with money coming from all the different sports associations around the world, they make enough money to where they can start investing and researching in different cannabis for their players, for protection, for health, for PTSD, concussion syndrome, it all. So, but it's a start, right?
That's right.
So, Mrs. Weedman.
Mr. Weedman.
That's the end of the show.
Boo.
Boo-hoo. Got anything else to say?
Have a great week, everybody. Smoke smart. Oh, I'm going to try to take Mr. Weedman's words away.
That's not my words. That's Polly's words.
No, have a great week, everybody. Stay well. Get outside. Get active. Smoke some weed. I don't know. Be good.
Be good to one another.
Just be good people.
Yep. Hey, everybody out there in the world, we love you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for holding me accountable out there. I appreciate that more than anything. And thanks for just talking with me and loving on me and DMing me all the time. I just love it. Appreciate it. And we love you out there. Thanks for listening. As always, Paulie always says, smoke smart. Puff, puffing away.
Puff, puff, puff.
Check out our cannabis lifestyle brand online at 8decades.com. Our custom smokes and accessories are perfect for your coffee table, bedroom nightstand, or kitchen counter. They're designed for you to show them off. The Canna community is also loving our hemp and cotton blend t-shirts, sweatshirts, scarves, and hats, finished off with our 8 Decades logo. We've got some awesome, long-lasting goods that will be your favorite for years to come. 8 Decades, because a 9th decade of cannabis prohibition isn't acceptable.